Rise for the Honorable Judge Christina Hayes.
I'm not standing.
Sir, you need to stand.
I heard you. I'm staying right here.
Mr. Blackwell, stand up. Now.
Or what? I'm not standing.
Bailiff, remove him. He's in contempt.
Richard Blackwell thought the civil trial was beneath him. A $12 million lawsuit from former employees alleging wage theft and discrimination was, in his view, nothing more than extortion from people too lazy to succeed. He had built a real estate empire worth $3.8 billion through aggressive tactics, legal maneuvering, and a ruthless approach to business that left broken companies and broken people in his wake. When he walked into the Manhattan Civil Court on that bright Wednesday morning in October, he expected the usual. His lawyers would argue, the other side would complain, and eventually his money would make the problem disappear. But when the bailiff called the court to order and he saw Judge Christina Hayes, a black woman in her 50s taking the bench, every entitled instinct in his body told him she didn't deserve his respect. That split-second decision, to remain seated while everyone else stood, would trigger a chain of events that would cost him millions, destroy his reputation, and prove that arrogance has consequences even billionaires can't buy their way out of. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Richard Blackwell had spent 62 years believing money made him untouchable. Born into wealth, he had expanded his father's real estate business into an empire spanning commercial properties, luxury developments, and residential towers across 15 states. But his success had come with a pattern of abuse documented in dozens of lawsuits. Wage theft from construction workers, discrimination against minority tenants, retaliation against employees who complained about safety violations, and a corporate culture where loyalty to Blackwell mattered more than following the law. He had been sued 47 times in 20 years, settling most cases with non-disclosure agreements that buried the evidence. He had been investigated by the Department of Labor 6 times, paying fines that were mere rounding errors in his quarterly profits. And he had cultivated a public persona as a self-made businessman, appearing on financial news shows to dispense advice about success while his companies systematically cheated the workers who actually built his empire. Judge Christina Hayes, 53, had served on the Manhattan Civil Court bench for 11 years after spending 15 years as a plaintiff's employment attorney. She had represented workers in wage theft cases, fought discrimination lawsuits, and built a reputation for thorough preparation and zero tolerance for corporate abuse. She had seen men like Blackwell before, executives who viewed court as just another business negotiation, who believed their wealth insulated them from accountability. And she had made it her mission to ensure that in her courtroom, everyone followed the same rules, regardless of their bank account. She was fair, scrupulously impartial, and absolutely unwilling to tolerate disrespect for the law or the court. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of courtroom 4B as the bailiff prepared to call the session to order. The courtroom was full. Blackwell sat at the defense table with his team of 5 attorneys from one of Manhattan's most expensive firms. At the plaintiff's table sat Maria Rodriguez, James Chun, and Deshaun Mitchell, 3 former employees representing a class of 127 workers who claimed Blackwell's companies had systematically underpaid them, denied overtime, and retaliated when they complained. Behind them sat dozens more workers who had taken time off from their jobs to witness the trial, hoping to see justice finally served against a man who had built his fortune on their backs. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Christina Hayes," the bailiff called out. Everyone in the courtroom stood. The plaintiffs, the attorneys, the gallery, everyone except Richard Blackwell, who remained seated, checking his phone with deliberate casualness. Judge Hayes entered from her chambers, her black robe flowing behind her, and paused when she reached the bench. Her eyes scanned the courtroom and immediately landed on Blackwell, the only person still seated, his posture radiating contempt. "Mr. Blackwell," Judge Hayes said, her voice calm but carrying absolute authority, "you will stand for this court." Blackwell looked up slowly, as if noticing her for the first time. He glanced at his lead attorney, who was standing and looking increasingly alarmed, then back at Judge Hayes. "I don't think so. I'll stand when I'm ready." A ripple of shock went through the courtroom. The bailiff stepped forward. "Sir," The bailiff just instructed everyone to stand. You need to comply. I heard him, Blackwell said, his voice dripping with disdain. I'm staying right here. She can wait. Judge Hayes remained standing, her expression unreadable but her eyes sharp with controlled fury. Mr. Blackwell, you will stand for this court right now. This is not a request. It is an order. Blackwell leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. Or what? You'll hold me in contempt? Do you know who I am? Do you know how much I pay in taxes? I employ 4,000 people across this country. I've donated millions to charity. I'm not standing for anyone, least of all. He stopped, but the implication hung in the air like poison. The courtroom erupted in gasps and angry murmurs. Judge Hayes raised her hand for silence, and the room immediately quieted. When she spoke, her voice was ice. Bailiff, remove Mr. Blackwell from my courtroom immediately. He is held in criminal contempt. We will resume this trial when Mr. Blackwell learns that respect for this court is not optional, regardless of his wealth or his opinion of who deserves that respect. Blackwell's face flushed red. You can't be serious. I'm the defendant. You can't throw me out of my own trial. I just did, Judge Hayes said. Bailiff, escort Mr. Blackwell out. If he resists, place him in custody. Two bailiffs approached the defense table. Blackwell's lead attorney, a senior partner named Gregory Walsh, stood quickly. Your Honor, if I may have a moment to consult with my client. Your client had his moment, Mr. Walsh. He chose to use it to disrespect this court. He can spend the rest of the day contemplating that choice. Judge Hayes looked at Blackwell, who was now standing, finally forced to do so by the approaching bailiffs. Mr. Blackwell, you are fined $10,000 for contempt of court. You will return tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And when you do, you will stand when ordered. You will show respect for these proceedings, or you will find yourself in much more serious trouble. Do you understand? Blackwell's jaw clenched. He opened his mouth to argue, saw the bailiff's hands moving toward their cuffs, and apparently decided discretion was the better part of valor. This is outrageous, he muttered, but he allowed himself to be escorted out of the courtroom. As the door closed behind him, Judge Hayes addressed the remaining attorneys and the gallery. Let me be absolutely clear to everyone present. This courtroom operates under the rule of law. Every person who enters here, regardless of their wealth, their status, or their personal opinions, will show respect for these proceedings and for this court. Anyone who believes their money exempts them from that requirement will learn otherwise very quickly. She paused, her eyes sweeping the room. We will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Mr. Walsh, I suggest you have a very serious conversation with your client about courtroom decorum and the consequences of continued contempt. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down with a decisive crack. Outside the courthouse, Blackwell was surrounded by reporters who had heard about the confrontation. Mr. Blackwell, why didn't you stand for the judge? One called out. Blackwell, his face still flushed with anger and humiliation, made the second catastrophic mistake of the day. I don't stand for judges who don't deserve respect. I've appeared before dozens of judges in my career, and I know quality when I see it. That judge was clearly appointed through some diversity quota, not because of merit. If the court system wants my respect, they need to earn it by putting qualified people on the bench. The reporters' phones came out. Cameras captured every word. And within an hour, Blackwell's comments were viral, played on every news network, dissected on social media, and shared by millions of people who were shocked by his blatant racism and arrogance. Should judges have the power to fine wealthy defendants more than the standard contempt amount based on their net worth? Comment your thoughts below. This wasn't just courtroom disrespect anymore. This was a billionaire revealing his true character, and a judge who was about to show him that wealth doesn't protect you from consequences. The next morning, the courtroom was even more packed than before. News of Blackwell's behavior had spread, and reporters filled every available seat. The plaintiffs sat at their table, energized by what they had witnessed. And Blackwell's legal team arrived early, looking exhausted and stressed. At 8:55 a.m., Blackwell arrived with his attorneys. He wore another expensive suit, but his expression was different. His lawyers had clearly spent the evening explaining exactly how much trouble he was in. The viral video of his courthouse comments had been catastrophic. Companies had already begun pulling contracts. 3 board members of his charitable foundation had resigned in protest. And the media scrutiny had turned his "quality over diversity" comment into a national conversation about racism in corporate America. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Christina Hayes," the bailiff called. This time, Richard Blackwell stood. Not quickly, not enthusiastically, but he stood. His face was tight with suppressed rage, but he followed the order. Judge Hayes entered and took her seat. "Mr. Blackwell, I see you've decided to show this court basic respect today. That's progress. You may be seated." Everyone sat. Judge Hayes reviewed her notes, then looked up at Blackwell. "Mr. Blackwell, before we begin today's proceedings, we need to address your conduct yesterday and your statements to the media afterward. You refused a direct order to stand for this court. You made comments suggesting your wealth exempted you from following courtroom rules. And then, outside this courthouse, you made statements that were not only disrespectful but revealed a belief that this court, and by extension this judge, lacks legitimacy based on race and gender." Blackwell's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client regrets his comments and—" "Mr. Walsh, I'm speaking to your client, not to you. Sit down." Judge Hayes's voice was sharp. Walsh sat immediately. Judge Hayes continued. "Mr. Blackwell, I want to be very clear about something. Your behavior yesterday and your subsequent comments have demonstrated a level of contempt not just for this court, but for the entire justice system. You have made it clear that you believe your wealth places you above the rules that govern everyone else. And you have revealed beliefs about race and merit that are abhorrent and have no place in any courtroom." She paused, and the courtroom was absolutely silent. "Yesterday, I fined you $10,000 for contempt. That was for your refusal to stand. Today, I am imposing an additional fine of $500,000 for your comments outside this courthouse, which constituted additional contempt by attempting to undermine the authority and legitimacy of this court." Gasps filled the courtroom. Blackwell's face went pale. His attorney stood again. "Your Honor, that's an excessive fine. We request." "Request denied," Judge Hayes said firmly. "Mr. Blackwell believes money is the solution to everything. Perhaps a fine that actually impacts him will convey the message that respect for this court is not negotiable. The fine stands." She turned her attention to the trial itself. "Now, we will proceed with this case. But Mr. Blackwell, let me make something absolutely clear. You are the defendant in a lawsuit alleging you systematically cheated 127 workers out of wages they were legally owed. These plaintiffs have taken time away from their jobs, their families, to seek justice. If you show them or this court one more ounce of disrespect, I will hold you in criminal contempt, which carries jail time. Do you understand?" Blackwell's voice was barely audible. "Yes, Your Honor." "I didn't hear you," Judge Hayes said. "Yes, Your Honor," Blackwell repeated louder, his humiliation complete. The trial proceeded, but the dynamic had fundamentally shifted. Blackwell's arrogance, which had been on full display the previous day, was gone. His attorneys presented their defense, but the viral video of his disrespect and his racist comments had poisoned any sympathy the jury might have had. The plaintiff's attorneys referenced his behavior, arguing it demonstrated the same contempt for workers that had led to the wage theft in the first place. Over the next 2 weeks, the evidence mounted. Testimony from former employees detailing how Blackwell's companies had systematically classified workers as independent contractors to avoid paying overtime. Time cards that had been altered to reduce hours worked. Emails from Blackwell himself ordering managers to keep labor costs down by any means necessary. An expert testimony showing that the wage theft had netted Blackwell's companies over $8 million in illegal savings, while workers struggled to pay rent and feed their families. The first twist came during Blackwell's own testimony. Under cross-examination, the plaintiff's attorney asked him directly, "Mr. Blackwell, do you believe Judge Hayes is qualified to preside over this case?" Blackwell's attorney objected, but Judge Hayes overruled. Answer the question, Mr. Blackwell. Blackwell hesitated. He knew the video was out there. He knew anything he said would be scrutinized. Yes, Your Honor is qualified. But you said outside this courthouse that she was appointed through a diversity quota, not merit. Were you lying then? Or are you lying now? Blackwell's face flushed. I spoke out of anger and frustration. I was wrong to say that. So to be clear, the attorney pressed, you made racist comments about the judge presiding over your case because you were angry? Does that same anger explain how you treated your employees? The objection came immediately, but the damage was done. The jury had seen Blackwell admit to racist statements made because he didn't get his way. They had watched him squirm under questioning, and they had connected his courtroom behavior to his treatment of workers. Both showed a man who believed rules didn't apply to him and that people he viewed as beneath him didn't deserve respect. The second twist came when the jury returned after 3 days of deliberation. They found in favor of the plaintiffs on every count: wage theft, overtime violations, retaliation, and hostile work environment. But the damages they awarded shocked everyone. $12 million in compensatory damages for the stolen wages, and $45 million in punitive damages, designed to punish Blackwell for his systematic abuse and to deter him and others from similar conduct. $57 million total. The largest wage theft verdict in Manhattan civil court history. Blackwell sat motionless as the verdict was read. His face drained of color. His attorneys looked stunned. And the plaintiffs, the workers who had been cheated, discriminated against, and disrespected, wept with relief and vindication. Judge Hayes thanked the jury and scheduled a hearing for 2 weeks later to address attorneys' fees and injunctive relief. But before she adjourned, she had one final statement. Mr. Blackwell, this jury has found that you systematically cheated the workers who built your empire. The evidence showed that you valued profit over people, that you saw your employees as expenses to be minimized rather than human beings deserving fair compensation. And your behavior in this courtroom demonstrated the same contempt, the belief that your wealth placed you above basic decency and respect. She leaned forward slightly. Let this verdict serve as a reminder that in this country, no one is above the law. Your billions don't exempt you from paying fair wages. Your status doesn't excuse discrimination, and your arrogance doesn't protect you from accountability. This court hopes you learn from this experience, though the evidence suggests that's unlikely. The gavel came down. Court is adjourned. The courtroom erupted in applause from the gallery, something Judge Hayes would normally not allow, but this time she let it continue for a moment before exiting to her chambers. The third and final twist came in the aftermath of the verdict. Blackwell's refusal to stand, his racist comments, and the massive jury award triggered a cascade of consequences he never anticipated. Federal investigators from the Department of Labor, who had previously accepted his company's settlements and moved on, reopened investigations into wage practices at all his properties. They found similar patterns of abuse at 32 different locations, resulting in $23 million in additional federal fines and mandatory audits. 3 major banks announced they were reviewing their lending relationships with Blackwell's companies, citing reputational concerns. His construction permits in 4 cities were delayed pending investigations into worker safety and wage compliance. And most devastatingly, his largest investors, a pension fund and 2 private equity firms, divested their holdings in his company, citing the verdict and his public comments as evidence of unacceptable leadership and legal risk. Blackwell's net worth, which had been $3.8 billion before the trial, dropped by an estimated $900 million in the 6 months following the verdict. Not just from the jury award and fines, but from lost contracts, increased borrowing costs, and the collapse of several development deals that partners abandoned. But perhaps the most significant consequence came from an unexpected source. Judge Hayes, who had been content to simply preside over the case and move on, was approached by a coalition of workers' rights organizations. They asked her to chair a commission studying wage theft in the construction industry and recommending reforms to protect workers. She agreed. Over the next 18 months, the Hayes Commission, as it became known, conducted a comprehensive study of wage theft across multiple industries. Their report, released to national media attention, found that wage theft cost American workers over $15 billion annually, more than all robberies, burglaries, and auto thefts combined. The commission recommended stronger penalties, faster resolution of wage claims, and personal liability for executives who knowingly engaged in wage theft. Would you support legislation that makes CEOs personally liable for wage theft at their companies? Let us know in the comments. 8 states adopted the Commission's recommendations within 2 years. Congress held hearings on federal wage theft legislation. And Judge Hayes became a national voice for workers' rights, all because she had refused to tolerate a billionaire's disrespect in her courtroom. Maria Rodriguez, James Chen, and Deshaun Mitchell, the lead plaintiffs, used their portions of the settlement to start a workers' advocacy organization. They helped other victims of wage theft navigate the legal system, connected workers with attorneys, and educated employees about their rights. Within 3 years, their organization had helped recover over $8 million in stolen wages for 600 workers across New York. As for Richard Blackwell, the man who had walked into court believing his wealth made him untouchable, he faced a complete reckoning. His companies remained operational but diminished. His reputation was destroyed beyond repair. And every news story about wage theft, every article about corporate arrogance, every discussion about inequality featured his name as an example of everything wrong with unchecked wealth and power. He appealed the verdict, of course. His lawyers argued the punitive damages were excessive, that Judge Hayes had been biased, that his comments hadn't been given proper context. The appeals court rejected every argument. In their opinion, they wrote, "The defendant's conduct in the trial court demonstrated exactly the contempt for workers and the legal system that the jury's verdict addressed. The trial judge showed remarkable restraint in the face of behavior that would have justified even more severe sanctions. The verdict is affirmed in its entirety." Blackwell's refusal to stand for a black woman judge, his racist comments about her qualifications, and his arrogant belief that money exempted him from basic respect had cost him tens of millions of dollars, destroyed his reputation, triggered federal investigations, and sparked a national movement for workers' rights. All because he couldn't bring himself to stand up for 90 seconds in a courtroom. Judge Christina Hayes continued her work on the bench, her reputation enhanced by her handling of the Blackwell case. She was known as firm but fair, someone who held everyone to the same standard regardless of wealth or status. Law students studied her contempt rulings. Workers' rights attorneys cited her decisions. And she became living proof that judges who refuse to be intimidated can change outcomes and create ripples of justice that extend far beyond a single case. The courtroom where it all happened became something of a landmark. Tour guides pointed it out when showing the courthouse. Legal interns requested to observe hearings there. And the workers who had stood up to one of the richest men in New York found inspiration in knowing that justice was possible, that judges like Christina Hayes existed, and that sometimes refusing to stand for someone who demands unearned respect can be the moment that changes everything. The lesson was profound and undeniable. Respect for the law isn't optional based on your bank account. Judicial authority doesn't bow to wealth or arrogance. And sometimes one billionaire refusing to stand, one judge refusing to tolerate that disrespect, one jury seeing the connection between courtroom contempt and workplace abuse, can create a verdict that echoes far beyond the courtroom and forces a reckoning that money can't buy its way out of. If you believe that billionaires should be held accountable just like everyone else and that judges who stand up to power deserve our support, subscribe and turn on notifications because tomorrow we have another story that shows what happens when arrogance meets accountability and justice prevails.